Kevin Hollinrake, a Conservative MP, is also a shadow levelling up at a housing secretary and joins us right now. Very good morning to you, Kevin.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed. Do you identify as an animal of any sort?
Well, my nickname's Rupert Bear by all my mates, so a bear, I suppose.
Can you explain that nickname?
Well, when I was 11, I was wearing yellow check trousers, and a friend...
And you lived to tell the tale?
I did, but I've never lived down the nickname, I'm afraid. So,
very good to know. So if you were going to identify, but what do you make of the new Labour Health Minister, Ashley Dalton? She's been appointed. I'm assuming her pronouns are she and her. She says that she appointed after of course we saw her predecessor sacked for messages in his WhatsApp group. She says that women can have a penis and people can identify as a llama if they want, and deserve dignity and respect. Do you agree?
No, I mean, it's just shocking to think this is the party that's governing our country, and that you would choose something like that as a government minister. I mean, she's obviously entitled to her views, but to think somehow that resonates with the average person in the street is just beyond me. I mean, it's just completely bonkers, and nobody understands it. In my view, Julian, you said many times on this particular subject, this whole debate is being basically stimulated by a very, very small number of activists, and the rest of the public just doesn't get it. Yeah,
I mean, OK, here's the thing. You say she's entitled to believe what she wants. I'm more offended by, more worried by her having those views than I am by Andrew Gwynne making a glib joke about a 72-year-old voter and telling her to F off over her bins. A horrible message. He lost his job. How can, though, he lose his job for that, but this woman thinks that people can identify as a llama?
Well, I tend to agree with that. Actually, it's clearly Keir Starmer must have known about her past views, because anybody with access to Google can find out what this member of Parliament
said. It took people on X about 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So it must have been out there. And I've got to say, Julia, as you know, there are lots of people in the Labour Party that have these views as well.
The Prime Minister.
Well, he couldn't say what a woman was, could he, when he was asked? In fact, he basically said that 1 in 1,000 women has a penis. So he clearly has mixed views himself, and he's all over the place on all these policies, of course, Keir Starmer. So, it's the person who believes in nothing will fall for anything, and that's where the Labour Party is. They fall for anything. This is complete nonsense. Of course, anybody supports the principle that anybody should be able to live their life exactly how they choose, as long as they stay within the confines of the law. But that does mean respecting other people's rights. And this is the serious part of this. To think somebody with a penis can go into a women's changing room or a women's toilet is absolutely an abhorrent...
Isn't it weird, though? Because I'm just trying to think who's been in power for the last 14 years, Kevin. We seem to have this conversation every time. Tories like you and Kevin Bain, although she was sound on this, to be fair, as a cabinet minister, you're saying how awful this is, how mad this is. It happened on your watch, and you guys did absolutely bugger all to stop it.
Well, I'm not sure that's right, actually, but Tories like me, if you
can what was wrong about what I said?
Because I was going to go on to say, if you can find any reference to me ever supporting the principle that somebody with a penis can go into women's prison or women's toilet...
Call them what they are. You allowed it to happen while you were in office.
Well, I think we made our mistakes.
That's what I'm saying. You did bugger all to stop it. That's why a lot of people are saying it's a bit rich. You're speaking up now.
I don't think that's right at all. As you just admitted now, Kemi winning her qualities brief did stand up against.
Well, we didn't see a change in the law to stop it. On the contrary, it was happening in schools. It's happening in there are 2 men right now in prisons in England who were put there during the time that the Tories were in power, who are in women's prisons. How's on your watch?
And they've got a penis. It's totally wrong that they should be there. Listen,
on your watch.
There are things we didn't get right. There's no doubt either. I think you'd admit that we stood up against a lot of this stuff. Okay, we could have done more.
No, you didn't. No. I stand up against this, but I've got no power. You were in government. Your lot were in government with a big majority. You don't have to stand up for things. You can change the law and prevent it from happening, and you didn't. You didn't do it.
We should have done that. That's right.
See, so I was right. So what I said was right.
Well, I don't think we did nothing. That's my point.
Do you think this is why an awful lot of
we should have done
people...
more, you're right.
Do you think this is why an awful lot of people who've actually got, and people like me, got a lot of time for Kemi Badenoch? I say she stood up on a lot of very good, strong issues, and she spoke out at the time on lots of issues and took a lot of flack for it as well. On not just this, but lots of other issues, that actually that's why they're turning to Reform and not the Tories. That's why Reform not just ahead of Tories in the polls, but coming ahead of Labour in some polls as well, because they know that actually the two major parties virtually the same when it comes to these things. They might say something if it seems unpopular and say they'll do something, but they don't. And that's why we're in the mess we're in on trans, on immigration, on all net zero, all the other mad policies that you guys, both major parties, have pushed, and that actually you might say one thing for an election, but you don't do anything about it. And that's why so many of your voters in July last year went to Reform, and even more of them are doing it now. Isn't that the problem?
There's some truth in what you say. There's no question we made some mistakes in certain areas. I've done it before on your show. I'm not going to do it again, but I can list all the successes we had over the last 14 years. And if you're having a proper balanced conversation, you would concede that.
And there are, yes.
So there are those things. Now, did we make mistakes? Yes, we did, particularly on migration. And of course, it's easy when you've made a mistake, and we could track back and find exactly what the levers we failed to pull on those particular issues. But we probably should have a conversation about going forward, because we've got a new leader now. We're under new leadership, Kemi Badenoch. And the reason I backed Kemi Badenoch, given the other options available, is because I've never known a situation with Kemi, having worked for her in the Department of Business and Trade, where she said one thing and done another. She's always been straight in what she said. So if she says, for example, we're going to keep net migration below X level, whatever that will be, she'll do it. And I think people over time will come to realise that's what Kemi stands for. Now, of course, at the moment, people are annoyed at us for some of the things we got wrong. And also, there's no government around the world that survived all the COVID fallout, including Donald Trump, I hasten to add. So all that kind of stuff, we were past our sell-by date. That was going to happen. What we've got to do now is bring forward policies and get people to trust Kemi that this will be different this time on those key issues that really are important to them and important to me, I hasten to add. So, this is what happened. But when you are challenging us and you're saying Reform, eating our lunch and the rest of it, you're saying you should accept, when you talk about bonkers policies, the fact that Reform have got £140 billion of uncosted, unfunding tax and spending policies in their manifesto. So I hope the next time you've got somebody from Reform on there...
I always challenge all of my guests if I think they're talking nonsense as well, No chance of a pact then for the birds is what Kemi Badenoch has said in the latest.
Absolutely right. We've got a hell of a lot of work to do, and we've got 4.5 years to do it, and we've got somebody who has some difficult moments in those 4.5 years, local elections in May, not least. And I'll be there with all the candidates, but it'll be a difficult time for us in May, and maybe the next May too. Over time, I think people will realise that we are the best option. We are a party that can govern, they've got the experience of governing and has made mistakes, but also has had successes. But I believe that we can bring forward policies that people feel need to be introduced in this country, and they are right. Controlling migration, securing the streets, balancing the books, building houses so people can get on the housing ladder, all those, levelling up the country, all those things are policies we will put together that we'll be able to implement. Anybody can stand on the sidelines and criticise. We have been there and know how difficult it is. But I think we can deliver on what we set out.
And I certainly think Labour have been a bit surprised and shocked to discover how difficult it is. I mean, you shadow Angela Rayner. And actually, it's interesting. She's one of the few people, I disagree with her on an awful lot of things, but at least, looking at building housing, getting some of the planning dealt with, which you guys weren't able to do or chose not to do, that would be a good thing. Can I ask you, are you comfortable about MPs getting an above inflation pay rise this year to have an annual salary of almost £94,000? There's a 2.8% pay rise. That's above inflation of just under £94,000. I realise that MPs you don't vote for your own pay. You don't set your own pay. It's done by Senior Salaries Review Board. But are you comfortable when there are so many people who are struggling right now to get that pay rise?
Well, I say this. I mean, before I entered politics, I earned a lot more money. I had my own business. I built up from scratch. And so I'm not in this for the money, is the principal thing. So And in many ways, I don't need the money, so I don't care what the pay rise is. And if it was a pay cut, I would accept that, whatever it is. But I can't speak for every different member of parliament, but it is independently set. So that's not really something
but
that
most people do need the money. Most people, and it's all very well. We can have, like, Rishi Sunak in the past, or others, very, very wealthy people who, Boris Johnson. I mean, it never seemed to manage his money, but actually has earned, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. Most people could never dream of earning that. I mean, £94,000 is give or take around 3 times what the average earnings are in this country. I've got no problem with MPs being well paid, but a pay rise at a time when lots of people are really struggling and their wages are being eaten away by policies previously and under the Labour government. Do you feel comfortable with that?
Well, to be honest, yes, I do. I mean, I say I'm not in it for the money. I could earn a lot more in the private sector. But if you want good people to come forward, you've got to pay them a going rate to do the job. Our salaries are not out of sync with salaries for MPs around the world. In fact, they're lower than many jurisdictions. So, listen, what the independent pay body, I don't know why they chose a 2.8% pay increase. I think that's probably about what average pay increases are in the public sector. It might even be private sector. It might even be a little bit below that. But I don't care about the money. But I do care that some people do need to earn a decent amount of money to do this job, and they should be paid a fair rate to do it.
Okay.
I'm going to come back to you on something else.
Very quickly, yeah.
You cannot say we failed on housing. That is just totally wrong.
Did you build all the houses you'd promised to build?
Yes, we did. Record numbers of housing. Over the last decade, the highest level of house building in 50 years of net housing.
You didn't hit your targets?
Yes, we did. 1 million in the last Parliament. That's exactly what we did.
I don't believe you did hit your targets, but you actually talked about houses that are actually there for people to live in.
Yes, that's right. Net housing formations, 1 million delivered in the last Parliament. That's exactly what we set out to do, exactly what we did.
Oh, I will query that. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I'll send you an apology. Can I ask you, just finally, Gen Z, I hate this generation nonsense, people aged between 18 and 27. So basically, young adults. A new survey has shown there is a deep generational divide in our country. Half of them believe the country is racist, and just 1 in 10 of them would be willing to fight for Britain if we were at war. Why do you think so many young people hate and are ashamed of their country?
There's an old proverb that goes something like this: if you don't welcome young people into the village, they will burn it down just to feel its warmth. And I think we can't talk about a free market system, capitalism, if people don't know how they can accumulate capital. We've got to make it easier for people.
Can you talk in English? You mean buy their own home, get a good job?
Start their own business, save, get a good job, all those things, level up the country, all those kind of things are tied to that, a number of which lie in my portfolios, which I'm very pleased about, because we do want to bring a really good offer in for people to buy their home.
Okay.
We've seen typically socialist Labour reduce every single incentive for first-time buyers to get on the housing ladder. They've increased stamp duty, cut right to buy, cut help to buy, reduced the number of affordable homes to purchase. They are pulling the rug from underneath the feet of first-time buyers, and will become once again the party of home ownership.
OK, really good to talk to you. Covered a lot of ground there. Kevin Hollingray, Conservative Shadow Housing and Levelling Up Secretary. Thank you very much, Steve, for that.